Reportedly was the target of an FBI raid. According to the Washington Post, FBI agents showed up at Paul Manafort's home late last month, seizing documents and other materials related to the ongoing Russia investigations. This as congressional committees delve deeper. And according to Bloomberg's headline today, demand thousands of documents from the Trump campaign. Joining us now, Hans von Spakovsky, a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. John Flannery is a former federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York and former special counsel to the U.S. House and Senate Judiciary Committees. Thanks very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
John, Paul Manafort says he was cooperating. In fact, he'd been testifying in front of a committee. Why send FBI agents to raid his house when he says he was handing over everything?
Because they obviously didn't think he was, and they convinced the judge that they had reason to search his house for documents, I assume, that they didn't find in the productions made to that date. And I think it was about a month before the search, he had revised his identification as an agent for a foreign government. And the $17.1 million that he got, spread over several years from the foreign government, appears to have been spread among a Potemkin village of LLCs and corporations. So like every good investigation, you follow the money, and that's what I think they were doing here.
Well, Hans, some might call it, I don't know, witness intimidation.
Well, what I would say is, look, there was no reason that the special counsel could not have simply issued a grand jury subpoena. There's no evidence yet been produced that a search warrant and a raid was necessary, particularly given the cooperation of this particular witness with all these committees in Congress. I frankly have a bad suspicion that this is part of Mueller's shock and awe to get back at critics of him and to show them that he may take advantage of the power he's got, particularly with regard to his critics.
Yeah, that's entirely untrue. There's no evidence of that at all.
There's no reason they couldn't have issued a subpoena rather than an FBI raid. No, there is not.
Yes, there is. They decided they couldn't trust him to produce what he had. They saved him from spoliation of what they wanted him to give them.
They have produced no evidence of any kind that he has not been cooperating with Congress and turning over the documents they've asked for.
Yes, well, this is not about Congress. This is about a grand jury investigation, which they went before a federal district judge, and they convinced him with an affidavit we'd all like to read that explained why they had to do this search under the circumstances they conducted it.
You and I both know that federal prosecutors can convince judges with grand jury subpoenas
you don't appear before the judges I appear
just about anything.
Well, that's not true.
The president, John, the president has called this a fishing expedition. He says this whole Russian thing is a fishing expedition.
He spent, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you know, sending FBI agents in the pre-dawn hours to the home of his former campaign manager. I mean, if there is, there has been no solid proof yet of any Russia collusion.
Well, yes, there has been. I'm sorry to correct you, but the June 9th, 2016 meeting was exactly collusion, and we can discuss whether it was conspiracy. And among the things they seized, according to one report today, are notes from that meeting that he took that haven't been turned over to anyone, as far as I know. So it's just not true. And we have the evidence of a cover-up, including about the meeting of June 9th, about a year later with lawyers and everybody, prompting the president to write a note for his son concealing aspects of that very meeting. So we certainly have a lot of concern, and the admissions of the president that he fired Comey because of the Russian investigation. So it's not like there's no there. There's plenty of there.
All right, Hans?
There is no evidence produced whatsoever yet of any violation of federal law. Having a meeting to discuss possible opposition research is not a violation of federal law. If it were, every member of Congress would be in jail. Getting opposition research.
You're an expert on election law, right?
Research is not a crime.
Wait. You're an expert on election law matters, and they received information from a foreign government. That's what the meeting was about, to use in a presidential presidential election, and it didn't disclose it. On top of that, we're talking about after the fact.
There's no violation of any federal law in having that meeting. There isn't.
Yes,
there is not. No, there isn't.
Well, I'll wait upon Mr. Mueller to make that conclusion.
You can't name a single federal statute that meeting violated. If it did, every member of Congress would be in jail. No, it isn't.
No, that's not. Every member of Congress is not making a deal to get elected with Russia for releasing dirt in an election to put away sanctions that Russia doesn't want.
To talk about possible information. There was no information prevented. It's not a violation of federal law. It was
sensitive, ultra-sensitive information coming from the Russians with the imprimatur that Mr. Trump, was their candidate, and they wanted to eliminate sanctions, which involve a lot of money, which is what these searches are about and what this investigation is going to turn on, in my opinion.
Having a meeting as a candidate like this is just not a violation of federal law. You can't name a statute that it violated.
There are meetings and there are meetings.
It's not a violation.
Let's talk about the documents that the Trump campaign has now turned over to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Hans, is it possible that somewhere in there lies some kind of violation of federal law that John is talking about?
I don't think so. I think here, the more the better. They're going to look through those documents. They're not going to find anything, just like they haven't so far. And then perhaps they can finally concentrate on the real crimes that have been, which is the leaking of classified information and classified operations for political purposes to get the president and to get the people working for him.
It is true, John. There's been an awful lot of leaking here.
There's a lot of leaking, and I almost think it's patriotic because I think they're more like whistleblowers. We're not talking about top secret information. We're talking about information that contradicts the public face this administration's given to the country, and time again on every level, whether it be about how we're dealing with Mexico or what's happening in the investigation. These leaks have contradicted the White House, and as a result, we as a people are better informed. Now, confidential and top secret information is something else. These quote leaks have been helpful to us as Americans.
That is wrong. One of the biggest leaks was the fact that they blew the fact that we had penetrated the Russian ambassador's telephone. They released a transcript of a conversation that the Russian ambassador had with Michael Flynn. I can't think of anything worse than blowing the fact that we had penetrated the security of the Russian embassy. That was not a benefit to the United States.
I can't think of anything worse.
We're going to have to leave it there. You two obviously see this issue from two very different perspectives, and we will continue to get you together.